If you look up advice on dating a dismissive avoidant, you'll generally find two options: either run away immediately or shrink your own personality to give them infinite space. Both of those approaches fail entirely. The life cycle of a relationship begins with the dating stage, which usually lasts from month 0 to month 6. And this exact window is where people make their most critical error. To avoid scaring their partner away, people rely on what psychologists call covert contracts. They hide their actual needs, keep their boundaries completely invisible, and silently hope the dismissive avoidant will eventually learn to read their mind and step up. Silent accommodation doesn't build emotional safety. It builds a localized pressure cooker. When you don't express your needs, you become resentful, and those suppressed needs eventually explode outward in a dysregulated state. You end up guaranteeing a systemic failure of the relationship before it even really begins. To bypass this trap, you have to do the exact opposite. You must communicate your needs early, and you must do it at a high conceptual level. This requires a technique called positive framing. Instead of issuing a demanding ultimatum like, "You need to text me every day," you frame it around a standard. You say, "I really value consistent communication in a relationship, and I love when we check in regularly." By stating your standards out loud, you convert the dating phase into a vetting process. You are no longer just trying to win someone over. You are actively testing their willingness to adapt to a shared reality. Dismissive avoidants actually respond highly well to logical, sensible standards. When you present your needs calmly and directly, it makes sense to them. They see you as an independent person who knows what they want, and it lays a clear, navigable groundwork for future friction. Taking up space early is your stress test. If you wait until a year into the relationship to share your boundaries, you haven't actually tested the foundation. You have to ensure the structure can hold weight before the initial infatuation inevitably wears off. This graph tracks bonding neurochemicals. Between 6 and 18 months, the intense high crashes to a flat baseline. Where infatuation ends, the power struggle begins. Partners drop masks, and we see a sharp rise in conflict as friction begins. For a dismissive avoidant, this sudden friction creates an internal crisis. They generally lack healthy modeling for how to navigate arguments, so any disagreement triggers their deepest psychological wounds: the fear of feeling trapped and the fear of being inadequate. Because of these internal triggers, the avoidant partner makes a fatal assumption. They interpret entirely normal relationship conflict as fundamental incompatibility. To protect themselves from that perceived failure, they begin to fiercely pull away. This withdrawal does not mean the relationship is doomed. It is simply a biological signal. The couple has exhausted their free supply of infatuation, and they now have to intentionally build the mechanical skills required to maintain the relationship. To survive this friction, the couple has to employ a psychological mechanism called trait integration.
We are drawn to traits we lack. You might love an avoidance logic early on, but later, those traits cause you to push apart. To fix this, partners must absorb the other's opposing trait. This intentional overlap creates balance. In practice, this means the dismissive avoidant must actively practice opening up and experiencing vulnerability. In exchange, their partner must actively practice maintaining their own independence and autonomy. If you refuse to integrate these shadow traits, you remain polarized at opposite ends of the spectrum. The pressure of those extreme differences will eventually cause the relationship to fracture entirely. For the partner of a dismissive avoidant, practicing independence relies on one specific behavioral shift. You have to learn to self-source your emotional needs. This gauge represents emotional reserves. If you drop your hobbies and make your partner your sole focus, you approach them running on empty. But when you maintain a rich life outside the relationship, keeping your tank halfway filled, panic stops. When you self-source, you can clearly ask for what you need without desperation. If your partner is having a bad day and needs space, you can accept it calmly because you aren't starving for their validation. This bypasses the avoidance fear of codependency entirely. Emotional equilibrium happens when both individuals take responsibility for managing their own baselines before they seek connection with each other. Once you navigate the power struggle, you transition into the reward stages of the relationship life cycle: stability, commitment, and eventually bliss. In the stability stage, the daily friction drops significantly. The exhausting work of establishing boundaries and communicating needs has transitioned into an automatic background habit. But dismissive avoidants love peace, and they can easily slip into stagnant complacency. To keep the connection alive, you must continuously inject novelty. You have to plan the weekly date night, try a new hobby, and intentionally push each other slightly out of your comfort zones. Long-term stability isn't a passive state where you get to stop trying. It requires active, intentional maintenance to ensure both people remain engaged. This brings us to a massive misconception about relationships. When things get difficult, people throw around the word incompatible as if it is a terminal diagnosis. The truth is, different needs and different childhood conditioning do not cause relationships to fail. Couples with vastly different personalities thrive all the time. Relationships fail strictly because two people lack the tools to bridge the gap between their differences. Surviving the power struggle does not require finding a perfect conflict-free partner. That person doesn't exist. Survival relies entirely on establishing mutual boundaries, communicating calmly, and actively doing your own internal work. A secure connection with a dismissive avoidant isn't built by dodging the friction. It is built by mastering the engineering of your own emotional mechanics.